Recording. Well, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining me here today to talk about finding certainty in uncertain times. In this series, it's a 3-part series, and I'm going to be sharing some stories and tips that you can implement in your life immediately so that you can claw back some much needed certainty. Firstly, I want to, though, acknowledge you for being here. It's fantastic that you've taken 20 minutes out of your day to work on your mindset, to look at things differently, and to really put yourselves first, because the first thing about us leading our lives is that we put ourselves first, and then we can share all the good joy and the information with others. So it also tells me that you're committed to your growth and well-being and your learning, which is fantastic. I'm excited to have you here. Well, I'm not going to labour this point, but I think it's important to say that we are absolutely in uncertain times, individually, in our families, in our friendships, in our workplaces, and globally, clearly from what's going on in this pandemic. And even normal human pressures are compounded by this deep worldwide uncertainty and fear, because fear is absolutely prevalent, as are many other emotions that we'll talk about. So people are also being torn apart based on their opposing beliefs. The relationships are breaking down through the pressure of lockdown. We have loved ones unwell, and for many, unfortunately and sadly, many aren't able to have their final goodbye. People are not being able to connect with each other in person, and restrictions are taking away our normal everyday freedoms. And this fear can put massive pressure on people's ability to function, not only in their days, but in their workplaces, and businesses are suffering as a result. And uncertainty is affecting us that much in every part of our lives, and for some people in their own livelihoods. And for that, it's deeply distressing. And we start to ask ourselves these questions inside, like, can I handle this? How much worse is it going to get? And will I cope if it gets any worse? And uncertainty can cause fear, anxiety, doubt, depression, and truly distress. And there are a lot of people out there in distress. Yet, it's not all doom and gloom. I want to say that there is so much hope and humanity in this world. Humans have always found a way to survive, and more than that, we know how to thrive. What it takes, though, is us to reframe what our experience is and what's going on in this world, and how we can affect our own change. But now more than ever, we must keep perspective, because finding certainty in these times gives us hope. It can help us find a way. It can help us see the light at the end of the tunnel. And in some ways, it can make us feel safe. Now, there was a time in my life when I was so deep in fear, in overwhelm and anxiety that I could barely function. All I could do that I knew how in that moment was to push everyone away from me, because them being there reminded me that I was not okay. They mirrored back to me that I was not okay, and I didn't want to see that, so I pushed them away. Now, the problem was that these were my children, my husband, and my mother. People who, A, couldn't be pushed away because I was in charge of their survival, my children, and B, didn't want to be. And yet the only thing that I knew what to do was to hide, was to just curl into a ball and pretend that they didn't exist, because I couldn't be responsible for them when I didn't know who I was, what was going on with me, and how I could be responsible for myself. The irony, though, of that experience is that I learned that we can't do it alone. We need people in our corner. We need help and support, and we need to be able to bounce ideas off people who can truly help us. And so I just wanted to share with you a little bit about the 6 core needs by Tony Robbins. So according to Tony Robbins, there are 6 core needs that we need to be able to function. That is connection, growth, contribution, significance, and yes, you guessed it, certainty and uncertainty. And uncertainty is often called variety as well. And what's happening in this world at the moment is that if this is baseline, uncertainty is massive for so many people, and certainty is very, very low. And when we have certainty up here, we have people wanting to do exactly what I did, hide, keep themselves safe. And I must say that there's a resourceful and an unresourceful way to experience both certainty and uncertainty. But when it's up this high, we are trying so hard to control things that we can't control. We're getting distracted by all of the noise. We're losing sight of who we are as a result of just things just being so externally frenetic for us. When we have, and just to balance it out, when we have too much certainty, we sabotage. We typically will be like, I'm just going to have a fight with someone, or I'm going to go off and have a massive adventure and throw the towel in and just, just leave and go and do things. So ideally, as humans, we want certainty and uncertainty to be going like this. So we get that variety, we get that fun, and we also have that sense of safety. And absolutely, down noise is deafening it sometimes. And so when we have a little bit more balance, that makes us feel as though that we can handle what can come. And so I'll be sharing a couple of tips along the way in how we can start to get that sense of balance back. And I just wanted to share with you a little image about how we can, so the first step, is how to quieten down the external noise. So block out what doesn't serve you. So if you think about sitting here today, we've got a never-ending news cycle. Everyone's conversations are centering around the same thing. People have different beliefs, and everyone's, I believe, beliefs are valid around that. But it's hard not to be swept up in your day, constantly being pulled to the external of you. But you don't need to be a victim to the external noise or situation around you. Focus only on what you can control and influence. I'm just going to share a little image with you. Do you like my new thing? It's very exciting. And that is this. So this is you, and this is a tip to show you that you are the center of the universe here. So this is your sphere of control. So this is what you can control. This is what you can influence. So this is what you can control in your day-to-day world. The next is the sphere of influence. So there are things in terms of how you can work, what conversations you can have, all of these different things that you can still be in control of. So sphere of control, sphere of influence, and then everything else. And what I suggest you do is recognize that you are at the center here. And the only true way of gaining certainty is finding it within ourselves. Because we're not going to be able to find it out there at times like this, where there is so much uncertainty, so much external noise, so many distractions. It's about bringing it in close and coming back to you. Hang on, just bear with me for a second. See where I'm going. Where are you all? And so essentially, I just want to ask you some questions like, what are you focusing on that you don't need to be? Where are you spending energy on external things that you can't control or influence? And for me, I'm as much as a human as anyone else. And there are times when I get caught up in the what ifs and the how comes and what does this mean? And if that happens, and what's this going to happen? The what ifs. And it just becomes exhausting. And it means that you're not, yeah, absolutely, Matt, you're finding you're checking the COVID numbers. Absolutely. It's like, what does that mean for us if we can check those COVID numbers? What conclusions can we draw from that? I think there's one certain thing in this world at the moment is that we don't know what the decisions are going to be. We don't know what the influences are going to be. You probably never could have predicted that you would be in the amount of lockdowns that you've been in Vic. And what can you start to let go of that is not serving you? So maybe, Matt, for you, it's checking the COVID numbers. Maybe that's not serving you because it's putting you in that externalized state of what's going on out there. But truly what we want to do is know what's going on inside of us. So start to think about what you can let go of, what you can, social media envy as well, Fiona, absolutely. What's everyone else doing? am I as good as them? And that comparison can just be really overwhelming, and it can really pull us down from the truth of where we are, which is important. So we must focus on building up our mindset so that we can daily handle what is coming up next. And the only thing that we can do is truly go inward to be able to do that, which I'll talk about in a moment. The other thing that really shapes our reality is watching our language. So if you are watching the news, which is interesting at the moment, which we'll talk about a little bit, language shapes your experience of reality. And if you are watching the news, I want you to look next time with different eyes. What are the words that they're using? Is it fear-based? Is it love-based? Is it designed to make you feel safe and happy? Or is it designed to instill fear? Is it designed to instill concern? And listen to the actual words they use. Terrifying, very inflammatory words that create an emotive effect. But then what happens after you watch the news? I imagine that you're not going, oh, wow, I feel so zen. I'm going to go meditate and feel fabulous. I suspect you're probably going, oh God, what does this mean? What's happening? What's going on? And so that's one place that you can start to go. I've never seen Bluey Craig. I don't know what you're talking about. Essentially though, start to think about the language that you use, because your language will shape your reality. So by Benjamin Lee Whorf said, language shapes the way we think and determines what we can think about. And so consider what words you're using. Do you say that you're starving or are you hungry? Do you say that you're terrified or you're worried? When people ask how you are, do you say okay, or do you share the truth of where you're at? Where are you at? At every opportunity, we have the choice to shape our moments, to shape our days, to shape our hours and our experiences. So when people ask you, are you okay? And you go, yeah, I'm good. Start to think about how you can say, actually, I'm feeling a little bit like this, and that then this is how it will, you can start to bring in a little bit more of that intimacy as well, because essentially we don't want to feel alone in the world. We want to be able to connect, and a way of doing that is through language. So it's a way of shaping our experience, but it's also a way of truly connecting with others. So watch your language, see how you're communicating with others, hear how they're communicating with you, get curious, start to open your ears to really what is the language that you're using, and what are you hearing? And then what feelings are you getting from that language? And then how is that shaping your reality? So start to get really curious about those things. And the third point I wanted to talk about was turn inward, get to know yourself. Again, to reiterate my point of everything, yeah, absolutely. Oh, and language is so powerful. Everything outside is uncontrollable right now. And again, the only thing that we can do is control ourselves, because uncertainty will often bring insecurities and fears to the surface. It can trigger unresolved events, and it can make our reactions our responses to things into reactions, quick reactions that may not necessarily be truly about the situation that's happening. It could be more about what's going on inside of us. So as Nelson Mandela said, learn to know yourself, to search realistically and regularly the processes of your own mind and your own feelings. Now, if you're familiar with Nelson, he spent 27 years in prison being persecuted for wanting to end apartheid and wanting fairness for all. And the way that he survived being in there was that he went inward. He focused on what are his beliefs, and he stayed true to his beliefs. He had opportunities to plead guilty, to get out of jail, excuse me, to have different experiences happen there that could have shortened his sentence, but it would have been a values clash for him to do so. So he worked on his mind, he worked on his emotions, he worked on who he is as a soul and as an individual. And of course, he came out and ended up being the Prime Minister of South Africa. So to not let the external noise take away truly who he was, we can learn great things from his experience. We are not in jail. We have not been persecuted. We are here in the freedom as much as we can grasp of that at the moment. And we have every vocation to be able to go inside of us. So what I'd like you to think about is, what are you feeling right now? What do you believe to be true about yourself? What do you value? What's important to you? Who is important to you? And what is it that you want for your life? What is it that you feel that you can create, even if it's a vision that you haven't yet made the steps to achieve? Think about what vision is going to carry you through this time. It could be a vision of simple things such as traveling. It could be relocating to another place. It could be who you're going to be spending that time with. If you can create a vision that is clear to you in terms of how you want to live your life, then that's an important thing, because again, it all needs to come from within. And the only thing, to reiterate my point before we end up today, that can truly build certainty is being the person that you are, learning you, knowing you, understanding your character traits, understanding what it is that you want and you don't want, understanding that you have the power of choice and that you are worthy of whatever you want. And so I look forward to joining you joining me next week, same time, same place. And that is to focus on building resilience and taking back our power. I'll see you then. Thank you.